were chatting through WhatsApp, and you had said that one of the most remarkable moments in your time with Caravan was when you guys played with Frank Zappa in a jam. You know,
Yeah, it
when
wasn't
was
the.
that?
It was
It
the
was
most
during the
interesting.
Spirit.
He put this is a concert called it was a concert in between France and Belgium in a place called Amoget,
Oh yeah.
and it was a very big festival in a large double like pole market. It was a huge tent. It held about 5,000 people, I think, and there's a stage right the way along it, and there were lots of very interesting people. It's the first time I heard gong, the nine-piece band then with a side drummer. There's all these things like Archie Shepp was there, Pink Floyd, David Arce's band, East of Eden, The Nice, Caravan was all part of that. And on stage, the compere of it was Pierre Lutez, who was like the John Peel of France, really, on radio and all that. And Frank Zappa was there. And he was invited to, well, he was inviting himself to play with every band, so it wasn't just us. He only played one number with each band. I think he played with the Pink Floyd. Yeah, he played with everybody, I think, or nearly everybody that wanted to play with him. And so he was this sort of curled up person on stage. It looked pretty stoned to me because it's quite a psychedelic festival. They had all these swan feathers all flipped up. So there's all swan feathers about, things like that. And so, yeah, and we played Who Do You Think You Are? Boom, 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 boom. And he came on stage. There's a recording of it. It sounds like he's starting an engine. It felt like that too. I mean, you know how he plays with this sort of full-on guitar solo. Easy for him to play. He said, "Oh yeah, I don't mind playing. That sounds great. Good. It's perfect for him, isn't it?" Boom, 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 boom. So I think he played for about 10 minutes. Solo. Also, Dave sort of led him into it as well because that was the thing done for Dave's soloing. And so yes, it was. I think for a lot of the audience it was interesting because and then there's Frank Zappa. I mean, come on, it's Mothers of Invention were amazing, weren't they? Really sort of full on, and he was play your guitar, etc. He's a really good, entertaining guitarist, wasn't he? It was uniquely him, a bit like Hendrix, uniquely him, a bit like Eric Clapton, uniquely him, a bit like Andy Latimer, uniquely him, Andy Summers, uniquely him, John McLaughlin, #1 progressive rock band that came in with In a Mountain Flame, all these other guitarists and things like that. I mean, as people tend to stick to, if you're not a musician and things like that, the easiest thing to listen to is popular music. Some people call it pop music, some people call it metallic rock, some people call it whatever it is, It all gets terminology, like Canterbury scene terminology.
And I would like to now to wrap up this Caravan period from our interview.
It's a
And
nice
I would
long
like to
interview,
ask you.
this. Great, really, I'm enjoying. I suppose I should answer more questions a bit more
Now
sort of
we entering
seriously.
into some other few questions about Hatfield and the North and Camel, but wrap up the Caravan stuff. And I would like to ask you, do you foresee a reunion in the near future with the other guys? Do you still have
Are you talking
a
about
intense
Caravan?
contact with? Yeah, talking about Caravan with
Well, it's
Pi. Do
happened
you still
like
have
there's been lots of reunions as far as I'm concerned, and also different musicians joining on that. It's really up to Pi. I suggested several years ago that it'd be nice to do a duo with him. Now he's doing trios anyway. And it's me that communicates more than the other boys, okay? I always try and call my cousin who's in Japan, and I think it's not going to happen, really. It's such a shame. I would welcome it to happen. I think it would be really nice for the audience if Pi, David, and I played again, okay? We don't need a drummer, we should do it as a trio. Also invite Jeffrey Richardson too, because I tried to
Mhm.
invite Jeffrey Richardson to come and do the TV show in 1990, but he didn't want to do it. I don't think he wanted to play as you know. He would always. I think he had a problem because up to that point he was the new boy in the band. You know, they have this great sort of joking thing, particularly Pie and everybody. You know, Pie particularly about. You know, he's the leader of the band. Okay, so what he says goes now, and I should really say happy birthday to him and say hello. I mean, we don't really communicate very well. We only communicate because just recently because of the box set.
Mhm.
You know, the box set that came out,
Yeah.
37 discs, some of them DVDs, through Ian Crockett and Snapper Music.
And I would like to now enter into other record, important, very important record from your career, which was Rock Bottom with Robert Wyatt. And
Okay,
during that period, and it was a sort of really landmark album for Robert for some personal and some musical reasons, because the album was recorded before and after the unfortunate accident. And how was the production like of that album? How was working with Robert on that one? He had left Matching Mole after the accident, and he was fully committed to that album. I imagine that it must have been a very tough time for you all, because you have been
well, it's only
close friends for a
listen
while.
when you say us all, this is what Rock Bottom was about. Robert was writing music. He'd gone to with Alfie, his partner in life.
Hmm.
He was in Venice, and um, the famous actress, which has lost my mind, she was very friendly with. And she was doing this film, right?
Yeah.
And Alfie was her friend and working in the system of this new movie. And Robert had to be there, and she brought him a little keyboard, and he was already thinking about music for
Yes.
Matching Mole, but when he was in, so he got that bit right. Okay, and so this is only about Robert. Okay, because Matching Mole didn't exist once he came off the end of a drain pipe and broke his back. Okay, he was unconscious, I think, for 6 weeks. Okay, in Stoke Mandeville Hospital, and so during that period of time, you know, when all this music inside you and things like that, and when you wake up, you've not got the possibility of walking again and all that sort of stuff, and you're on medication and breathing is very so. Some of it was done to the rhythm of that, you know, no, knit, not, live, and all these things you put together, all Robert's ideas, and because he was very friendly with Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. Nick was an amazing producer, so all those musicians on that album came together not at the same time. Okay, so I think Dudu Pakwana and Mongeji Fazer, you know, the horn players, the drummer, what was his name? Lloyd Lewis? No, I can't remember what his name was. Yeah, because he's a fantastic drummer.
Hmm.
And I went and he gave the bass. He wanted. I remember going around to visit him when he said, "Look, I really like you to play bass on three of the numbers." And then we worked through that. He was living in Richmond then, and in a wheelchair, okay, and all that sort of stuff. And so he got this album to make, and it was when he was at his rock bottom. Okay, seaweed tangle and all that stuff, you know. Seaweed tangle in my heart, body reminds me of your rocky bottom. You know, all those lyrics and things like that. So they all relate to the stuff in the studio. And it all came together because of Robert. That was his, you know, music, particularly. That was the first album that he made in a wheelchair. and it was amazing going into the studio. All the parts were on it on the trackside. Little Red Riding Hood Hits the Road, and a couple of the other ones too were perfect for me. I played one with the melody, ba 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 ba, but it goes through halfway through. It's in seven again. It goes all the way through to the middle, and then the whole backing track, which is all the musicians I had to play with, went backwards, including his singing, and I was the only one going from beginning to end forwards. Okay, and so it was perfect for me. I had a really, really good time. Nick Mason is an amazing recording engineer and studio producer, okay, because of they spent so many amazing, Pink Floyd's albums are amazing, aren't they? I mean,
Mhm,
incredible,
yeah, for
incredible
sure.
recording and incredible events and the writing of it. It's all amazing, isn't it? And so it's like that in the studio, and it was very nice. They were both, Roberts, just play. He didn't tell me how to play or what to play. Robert was like that. It was like the Miles Davis of Canterbury. I mean, but Miles Davis didn't tell people what to play. He just told them when to play, so that he picked the right person that he knew that would do the job. And that's what happened to me. I was blessed by that. And 2 years ago, I was asked to go down. They made a young girl from Valencia. Um, she did a hot. She went to see Rob and said, "I really want to make a film of your rock bottom music and things and story of it." And so that's available somewhere. I can let you know what that is. But it was done in sort of, yeah, it's a very nice story. It's not quite the deal. It's a bit American because it's in American language, but it's all about the events and things made into a story. It's a bit like Mozart, the American film for Mozart, Amadeus. It's not quite on the money. So it becomes a real story. But it was lovely for me because I got invited because, of course, most of those musicians aren't on the planet anymore. Mongazy Fazer not on the planet.
Yeah.
Mike Oldfield, much too in his own world, and Nick Mason's not going to go down there and take part with it. So they tried to get all these people, and the only person they got to go down was me. Said, "Yeah, I'm welcome to come down. I really enjoyed it. I can." They wanted me to talk about, like you now, saying what happened in the studio. It was wonderful. It was really nice music to play, really interesting, very inspiring to do a really good job. I really enjoyed my bass parts on there. I'm really happy with because I was enjoying it. And when I was doing it, first of all, I was doing it with a little amp. I was listening to the music on the tape before I did all this. Okay, I was listening to the backing track on on um, on headphones, and I was trying my bass sound out through headphones on a little amp I had. And then Nick came out and said, "Well, how would you like?"
Did Nick used to be a slave driver in the studio, or he was really
No, no, he
supportive?
just no, he just got the sound right. Robert and him were sitting together,
Oh
and
yeah.
Robert was just letting him get on with the production of it once it had been recorded. And so it was all Robert's ideas on how to do it and all the rest of it. And it was Nick's idea to say, well, we can do this. It's a bit like the Beatles and whatever his name was, the famous composer and production man. I forget what you call him now. God, getting on. But it's the same as that. He's a really good person to produce, and he's a great friend. He loved Robert, right? That's why he said, "Well, we should do this together," in the studio. And it was a really good studio, right? All this stuff in. The people had all played well because they were asked. Robert didn't tell you. I mean, he just picked all his favourite musicians. It's amazing, isn't it? It's a beautiful album. It really is well recorded too, and that's because of Nick. Yeah, they weren't. It wasn't anything to do. It was about, you're there as a professional person that's a friend, and you get on with the job. Like my dad said to me, do the best you can do. You do, you know.
Yeah, and one of the things that most struck me on that album was the force of you guys playing, because Robert really reinvented himself as a performer on that album because he used to be a soul drummer before.
He, he didn't reinvent himself. All he did was he you know, he's also a percussionist and things like that. Not on that album, but yes, okay, he had to be. Not really. He was always going to be a singer. He was always going to be an entertainer. He was always going to be loved because of the songs he wrote. You know, for me, he's the number one part of Soft Machine. Really, his character and his invention and all the rest of it. They're all good. You know, come on. You know, Kevin and Mike Rattley's also, they're all amazing. I mean, you're blessed to play with people like I was anyway. Everybody I played with, I was blessed to play with because they're all inventions of themselves. You know, there was no weak moments in any of the band that I played in, bands played with, and I was blessed to do that. You know, I was really blessed to play the way I thought. Robert just said, "Look, this is the music. Listen to it. Come to the studio." Paid me
Hmm?
to be me on his album. You know, wow. Didn't say, "Oh, it's got to go like this." You know, being bumpty bump, being bibbity, whatever. No, just get on and play. You know, it was lovely. Very nice experience, and it was a very nice experience to go down to a theatre in Spain. Okay, in
Yeah.
Barcelona, and hear the music. Some of it that was the original album, and a lot of it was music. But this is the film Rotters Club, okay, and she made it to advertise the fact of Robert's music. People that don't know it and all that sort of stuff, and the story as well. And I don't know whether it's seen the light of day. I'm sure it's on sale somewhere. I've got a copy of it somewhere. It's really great. But the sound in the studio is great because you've got the bass end. On the album, he's mixed the bass a little bit. You can hear it, but it's not up to the level of where it's really you can really hear what it's doing with the rhythms and things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. One of the tracks, like I say, is in sevenths, and it goes through halfway through as we never played it at the same time. Okay, no one ever played at the same time. I think maybe they're in the studio, not together. You know,
Yeah.
it's all like collage together. Okay, so it's not like playing it live together
Yeah.
with one mic. That would be interesting. Yeah.
During that period, concomitantly, I think, uh, you formed Hatfield and the North with Steve Miller, with Pip Pyle and Phil Miller. And I would like to ask you about the different flavor of this band because it was a more jazz fusion direction, more improvisational than in the Caravan days
Yes,
of you
it was.
performing.
Yes, and it
And
was in
and
the
I and I,
studio. So yeah.
and I would like to. There was a rumor about the early days of forming Hatfield and the North that I wanted to confirm with you and set me straight if I'm wrong. That the band was originally going to be a new lineup of Delivery. Was that true, or
Well,
was it going to be a new group
yeah,
since
really,
the day one?
I'd had Phil and Steve Miller
Hmm.
in the Waterloo recordings. Okay, um, and so it's really was going to be a, a Steve band. Okay, Steve Miller band. But when it got there, of course, they were they'd already been a Steve delivery, a Steve Miller delivery, which wasn't called Steve Miller delivery, which it was really. Okay, in the early days, it was Carol Grimes. They got a female singer in. Okay, and Steve was the one that played with all the blues musicians, the famous ones that came across to London. He was always in the band, as a keyboard player, supporting those and playing with them. Okay, and so I left to form a band with Steve and Pip and Phil, because those three had already played together. And I moved my family up. That's Pat, Trisha and Jason, and left Caravan and moved up to London to live in Pip's flat. Okay. And the first musics we played were really with a man called Lowell Coxhill, and also we rehearsed on our own too together. And there wasn't a lot of songs about then. They wanted to play new stuff. Okay. I think Phil had a couple of bits and pieces, but we, obviously we're going to play some of his music from Matching Mole on live, but we needed new music. And I had a lot of ideas then because I'd been in, with Steve Miller, and I had riffs and things, and, I had all that stuff like ba-ba-dee ba-bom-bom-bom, bom-ba-dee-bom, bom-ba-dee-bom-ba-bom, the one that you play, and other things too. And they weren't complete. And when I put songs up, I let everybody do what they want to do. I don't tell them, oh, it's arranged like this and it's sorted that bloody bit. So and it really, the two brothers had different ideas about what the music should be. I mean, obviously when you're they call it jamming, but I don't call it jamming. I'm just trying out different ideas and things like that. And you all play together and you're free about it, But Phil really wanted to be director of his music and everybody, and it should be more set out and ordered, whereas Steve was quite happy to make things like that, but be more free. And so, it didn't really work. And so, Steve decided, well, it's better he's not in it. And Phil, it's really sad that, because I think it would have been a great band, Hatfield and The North then. But it's really fun how you saying, well, how did the music, is it? Yeah, they've got many recordings of that. One thing I'll mention here now, the first concert that Robert did in a wheelchair of his rock bottom music, I went to the concert of it, right? No one seems to know that it exists. I think it was at the CIA. And there was the clarinet player there that played with him. He lived in Kent. God, I forgot his name. Help. And he was there at the concert. And I took a big Sony tape recorder. Okay, I was sitting there with my then girlfriend, was Surreal Airs, okay, Kevin's ex-wife. And so we sat there and I recorded it. And I'm thinking, I've got a recording of that rock bottom, anyway, just so you know. I think I'm going to put it up on Bandcamp and try and direct some money towards Robert and Alfie, rather than give it to someone with a record company and all that stuff that they know enough money from. But that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And so you're talking about Hatfield. I've also got all those. It's called my archive series. I have many tapes of that period of time when I moved up.
Oh, yeah.
I used to tape everything, every concert, everything. So the next, not to make, then it wasn't called bootleg. It's my job to understand how the music went, so you could rewrite stuff, especially at concerts of Hatfield and The North, the early days and things like that, and rehearsals, arguments, everything about it. So you could see how the music could be perfected, okay? Now I've got this as an archive series and all those tapes, and it's on everything I ever did. Dave Stewart controls it. He doesn't want anything out that, he doesn't want to hear anything that he's on, like the rehearsals for rock, for Rotters Club and things like that, which is rather a shame because I know people like to hear that, and I put it all up on my Bandcamp thing through a guy called Robert, and of course Dave attacked and said, look, if that's going to go out, I'm going to take your whole Bandcamp site down. Oh, thanks, Dave, So there you go. And also there's these other albums that we had to sign a contract with Dave. It's Pip's idea. This one's called Hatwise Choice. And they're all radio programs and concerts and bits and pieces that we did in the 70s, in between you know, making albums and things. We went on the road and things like that. And so Pip came up. It should have been called Pitwise Choice because it also had us when Robert was in the band. You know, we played a French TV show with Dave Sinclair because Dave Sinclair was in it first after Hatfield and The North. You know, in because he played with Maxie Mole, and Pip really thought, well, I really like, let's get your cousin in the band. So it's a good idea, yeah, good. And so, but the trouble is, it wasn't. Dave, you know, Dave was there when we invited Richard Branston down to a millionaire's house in the countryside where we'd been doing a concert. We did a concert particularly for Virgin Records so they could hear us because, you know, Gong had been with Virgin and, you know, Mike Oldfield was the first person in with his tubular bells. And so there's a story. I heard all the story, exactly what that was about when Hatfield and North went in after Gong from the bass player of, you know, Howlett. What's
You
his
know,
name? You know, the bass
you were
player.
you
And
were
so,
saying you were saying how many tapes and unofficial recordings do you own of the band from during this period? And Hatfield and the North and Gilgamesh had played a series of concerts
yeah,
together in late
there's another one
33.
come up just recently when we played at the
These
Roundhouse
ones are in
with
the verge
you
of
know,
being released or something
well, no,
because
no, no. They're just files and things. They were done. I found, and other people have made, and they're sending them to me now. And you should check my Bandcamp out because there's one from the Roundhouse where the only thing that wasn't on tape is my singing, and so I'm thinking of taking that tape and re-singing it, and then telling every, you know, it's only Dave Stewart that's on the planet, you know. I mean, and he feels that he doesn't want to do Hatfield music again. Actually, he didn't do the TV show, he didn't want to do it. And to get these albums out, we had to sign a contract saying, well, we agree on the choice
Mhm.
of music, and you all made choices, but he oversaw it and he mixed it and did it all and made the cover and all that sort of stuff. And that's the only reason why it came out. Okay, they're nice albums if no one's got them, and they're on sale from Burning Shed. They're really nice albums. Also, the T-shirt is too. Anybody wants to know about that? Contact Burning Shed in England, and all this stuff's for sale. Okay, the people really love Hatfield and the North, and there are quite a few thousand people that do around the planet, but probably don't know that this exists. You know. So there you go. Advertising campaign. Give us a job and buy my music
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm completely
And
skilled. You know.
what memories what memories do you have from that concerts?
Always good, always fun. It was always fun. It was always different.
Yeah.
I can tell you stories when Benj Lefebvre was sitting, you know, the minder for Robert Plant, and the band were off the road for a year. He came, and stories like this, you know, we we had our own van, a big lorry then, and Pip used to drive us down to concerts in his mum's Capri sports car 3.4, you know, the Capri, the Ford Capri. And we'd go down to the concert. I mean, the first one that Benj did, he came down in the van with the road crew, which were friends of mine from Canterbury. Okay, so I organised them to come down in the van, drive it down, and he had fun all the way down, pretending that the lorry was breaking down and all that stuff. Every time we came to a hill, he just quit. It's all jokes. It was always jokes in Hatfield and the North, and dedicated to music totally. So on this journey down to Bordeaux, where we're going to do a Hatfield concert, where Benj was going to arrive just after us with the road crew and the gear, we were going down the motorway at sort of like 90 mile an hour, rewriting the set. I'd be like in sort of parallel to Phil with our guitars in the back. Dave used to sit next to Pip, and would they rewrite the set for that night, you know, with all the little components in between. Oh, yeah, we use that bit, and we go, well, let's not do it that way. And Pip was very good. arranging the music differently every night. He was very good at that, right? And Dave was always on the case with, well, you know, that link we did there and that thing. He could remember all the links, you know, written wise and things like that. So I used to learn it by ear. Once I learned it by ear, I could follow all the things to do, just get on with it. And so when we arrived down at the hotel in Bordeaux, which was like south, you know, France, it's got a different smell about it, it's fruity and all that sort of stuff. And we went in this hotel, and like Art Nouveau with staircase, went up 3 flights of stairs. I mean, this is a story, right? So, and there's also tapes of the concert and things like that. And so Ben had been having a good time. We wanted to go to bed straight. I was given this great big key, and I was put, oh yeah, you better sleep with Ben. Ha ha ha, you know. And so I walked up the stairs with him so we could go to bed, and there's 2 big double beds at the top of it. It stank of goat piss because the actual, you know, the trap that stops the water and the smell coming up from the sewage, they don't have them in France. Right? It's this beautiful hotel, all old and a bit mouldy. Got to the top, put this giant metal key in the door, and it didn't work. It was the wrong key, okay? And so before I said, oh, I'll just go down, I'll just go down and get, I don't know, saying I'm going to get it. He just sort of moved me out of the way and just walked through the door. The whole frame came out. Poff, right? This is like Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant's Minder, you know? And he wants to go to bed. And that's it. He just went in. Yeah, I mean, I'm a really good builder and repair person, so I didn't have a problem to put it back up and stick the paper around and put the thing and then actually get the key, you know. But it's like he got straight into bed, and of course there were lights above our bed and the switch just there. And he couldn't turn the light out, so he just got hold of the wire and went zip, and off came the light. You know, it's like, and it was the most amazing concert we did. It was really good. We set it all up by, you know, it's like concrete sort of like stair. He got all the plants and made it look like home. This great big giant plants on stage, and then carpets and things like that, you know. And where the audience sat, it was like steps. Anyway, we had to go and eat. And so we asked someone who got this Dojo little tiny vehicle and said, can you run? Oh, yeah, they can run you to this little young guy ran us to the nearest restaurant, which was about 3/4 of a kilometre away. You know, everything's in kilometres there, so about half a mile away. And on the way there, he's trying to make the guy go faster as a joke. We were in the back, holding the frame of the vehicle, which is only a little tiny Dojo, right, and swinging it. So it was like the guy was trying to keep it on the road, you know. And so he left us, you know, in this restaurant where we got to eat, you know. And so everything about Hatfield and The North was fun. And the music was really dedicated 24 hours a day. They weren't there to, if the people didn't like it, they didn't like it, okay? They didn't, you know, this is them, artists, you know. It's amazing to be in Hatfield and The North. It's full on, you know. Music at quite high standard, always different every night. I've got a lot of the tapes of that, right? And also the stories that go with it, which is always about jokes, arguments about the music, dee. And I was hoping to put that on Bandcamp, but of course Dave Stewart said no. And people would love it, Dave. Come on, don't you know? No, he's in control totally. It's the reason why I left the band, and it didn't get called Hatfield and North. It called National Health. And Dave was the leader of the band then, and it was directed by him. And Pip and Phil wanted to do that because it was really dedicated to the music and writing of it and the construction of it, which was at a very high level. And Dave was an amazing keyboard player, amazing music writer, thinker, incredible, totally unique. Dave Stewart, fantastic. But I like to be me, and I like all the things to do like Caravan. You had a chance to be yourself. You weren't directed with a great long, you know, bass part that went There's some of the bass parts I had to learn by ear. It was like bo be bo bo be be bo bo do dee baby dee yeah bo do bo bo do dee be bo do dee bo bo do dee bo bo dee bum bum ba bum bum ba 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 ba. So there's no, you know, how are you going to extend that? You know, it's like so you can be yourself, you know, and make it go with the drums. But Pip and I were the most amazing rhythm section. You know, it was always different, busy, you know. And my melodic content was pretty on the case and timing, you know. Pip also, like we moved together. Pip was always, he had a spinhaler because he had a problem with his lungs. And so occasionally he had to take this, which actually slowed him down, okay? Slowed his heartbeat down. And then as it wore off, you get, and all at the right places, you know, music does speed up. It doesn't always, you know, like it does now. You record things to a beat. I mean, what is that? It sounds so boring, and until people get used to that, it's like people say, well, oh, Hatfield and the North. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds different. It's called progressive music.
Mm-hmm. And
Now it's
all I,
called prog, apparently.
yeah, yeah, and and I was reading an interview from Dave Stewart, and he had said that Hatfield and the North was definitely a band that used to experiment with everything possible in the studio setting without as much pressure as other bands usually felt.
Exactly.
And I would like to ask about.
Particularly because of Pip, yes. We experimented with everything. Sound, collages,
Hmm?
jokes, you name it. Particularly sound and things going backwards. In fact, on the first album, it goes, and now Hatfield and the North. We learned to say that backwards. We
I
learned
would
to
like
say
to ask.
that backwards. And then it's played forwards. That's why it sounds like, and now Hatfield and the North. You know, we spent a lot of money doing this stuff, being really weird in the studio, you know. So
Mm,
like, so there's a
yeah,
story for you, you know. And now Hatfield and the North, and all these things like from Dave were amazing. Totally unique, very interesting album. The first one for me is my favourite. Rotters Club. It was the Rotters Club. You know what a Rotters Club is? It's the Victorian men's club, you know, which rotters were. They were a bunch of rotters, you know. Used to play this game called, especially at me too, called Snape, and they'd wind you up, you know. Pip's thing about doing music, like say Share It, my tune where he's written the music, and he liked to count things in, you know. And he used to count them in on the TV show when we did Share It. He'd count it in fast, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, Tapolsky, and me, I'd be sort of like, well, I wasn't going slow, but you could recognise it because I was like making it recognisable. You know, that was the problem for me in Hatfield and the North. When you had to sing a tune like Phil Miller's, he'd be playing the melody like
yeah.
Alex, you know, and Robert's lyrics go. And if you're counting it in,
One of
it's
the things,
listen
one
to
of
this.
the most
This is
um,
to ask you about the music and how we played it and what it was like. This is
yeah,
it for me when it was counted in. Okay, they both Dave Stewart and Phil Miller played the melody when a singer does the melody. Okay, it's like Calyx is like poetry in motion is what you become. Well, really, it's much better if it's poetry in motion. The lyrics say, poetry in motion is what you become. It's still in time, but it makes its own timing. Okay, that's what gives you your character, not your
yeah.
type of singing. And so when you got like you know, the lyrics
I love.
to the lyrics to licks for the ladies. Here's one. This is why I found it difficult to do because when you get someone to count it in, and the lyrics are uh, um, now it's time it doesn't need any rhythm at all. It goes, now it's time for my vocal line. Okay. And so when I do it now, and we did it in 2005 when I reformed the band, okay, from my own band, and we played in Tokyo and made 2 concerts. That is just those recordings I've been working on with Shin Katayama and Vivid Sound. It should. I should have. 25 of them should be arriving tomorrow morning. The first time I actually got it. In it is a bonus CD of my archive series. Okay, and the Hatfield and the North is with Alex Maguire. And by then, that Pip and Phil had started to make a band. Done bands together like In Cahoots and things like that. And they were back to the beginning when they played more freely together. Okay, the arrangements were there. There was always a problem between Phil and Pip. They were friends, they were like brothers, same thing. All of their lives. Their gardens backed onto each other, in Sawbridgeworth. And it's amazing, those two together. They're totally unique. Phil, totally unique guitar player. Most amazing melody and construction of chords and things. Very beautiful Phil's music. Very beautiful guitar player too. Very interesting. Very him.
One of the things that I most worship on those series of experiments that they've and you now had said that the band used to do and dwell into the 2 albums, the debut album as the Roaders Club album was the song titles. Shaving is boring. I love those song titles.
Isn't that lovely? Yes, Pip is a great lyricist. I used to sing them and people think that it was my song. No, Pip's. It's like, lovely melody, lovely chords, and wonderful melodies. I mean, I was blessed with that by all these great songwriters, wasn't I? Through every band I played with, I was allowed to sing some of the songs where the people who've written them didn't sing, like Pip. You won't believe my life's a mess. You probably think it's groovy. Meeting people every day and see some place abroad. But I admit that when the time is right, it can be quite a laugh. But that's not often. Eventually, I think that you will agree. I'm only putting lines out and missing ears disappears, whatever it is. And as
Mm.
for you, they said you were Swedish. It was like Pip's lyrics, and it's supersonic to sing because I can get the. I can do my warbling doodly do, lovely melodies. I mean, they all are. I do know Pip's albums; they're fantastic. 7-Year Itch, check it out. It's got some beautiful music in that. I sing the first track, Seven Sisters. Yeah.
It there's this album features the guest appearance of an amazing artist. He collaborated with your cousin a lot, which was Barbara Gaskin, and I'm a huge fan of Spiral Gyra.
Yeah, isn't it a nice
Was it
band? That
was
was
like
Martin Cockram and all that stuff. Yeah,
was
yeah.
it what
Great
was
filler.
like working with her in the studio? I find her
Well,
that kind of
we
artist
didn't
so
really,
spontaneous. I'm just
yeah.
fascinated by her work.
Well, she was just guided by, it was Dave Stewart's girlfriends.
Oh yeah.
I knew about Barbara Gaskin, obviously, because of Canterbury. They lived at a place called 5 Radigan's Terrace, and she lived with a whole bunch of artists and things like that, painters and things that are all friends. But the leader of the band was a man called Martin Cochran, and there was the other members there. You say you like the music, yeah, it's fun. Didn't get much fame then. Didn't come across them much because they were in a different area of music, and it was Caravan time. Okay, Barbara became Dave Sinclair's girlfriend for a little bit. Okay, and
Mhm.
so after the Sparager, I think, just for a little bit. I remember going down there because my mother was dying then at 62, and I got to go and see her, and so I had to go down, and I called in to see and Barbara with my girlfriend then was Suri Elias, Kevin's ex-wife, you know. And then I got to see my mum
Uh,
before she died, 3 days, you know. So she just said goodbye to me. She's had terrible complaint cancer of the inside of her spinal cord, you know, so it killed her after 2 years. But then, yeah, you know, I mean, Barbara Gaskin talking about the girls. So, yeah, Anne and, you know, and Amanda, they were all girlfriends. Well, I think maybe, yeah, I think they were girlfriends of Dave Stewart, and that's why they're in there. Singers, and he arranged all that and wrote, and he spent a long time working with them. I didn't actually sing it at the same time as them, but they were, you know, they were in the studio and doing a good job. You know, it's quite difficult to do that stuff. You know, it was all done at separate moments, so they didn't sing at the same time. They collaged it together with Dave's help because it's not easy music to sing. You know.
hard question. Today, do you prefer the debut album or Rodders Club?
Oh, easily the first album, yeah.
Oh yeah, why?
Because it's got
Could you
more
elaborate on
freedom
that?
and magic. It's got more freedom, and I like them both. They're both good, but I left because of the second one. I didn't want to be a Rotters Club. I didn't want to be that.
Oh really?
No, it's too stiff for me. It's beautiful music. I love it, and it's like everybody else likes it. My favourite one was the first one, where the music started, particularly when the spirit of the band didn't have this control on it, you know, perfection and all that. It was much more free. And so I was able to have more music on that. I did have a whole bunch load of other music, but there just wasn't the space to get it on there, you know. And one, I had to leave the band because the music wasn't making money then. It's only over the years that people have found that music because it's, you know, it's beautiful music, all of it. All the things we did, it wasn't so good on stage. It was played much too loudly and always irregular to what that album was. You know, it's always different, and that's what made it difficult for the audience to sort of recognise it, and you know, they wanted it to go like the album, which would perfect. You know, it took ages to get that perfection in the studio. I remember on one of the albums, we'd actually taken LSD. How about that? And Dave Stewart was in there, you know, playing the keyboards. And it
Mhm.
was like a bit frosty and snowy outside, and I had bare feet. I remember going out. I remember watching his hands sort of going, you know. I mean, I only took a few trips. I think Dave took quite a lot of LSD in the early days. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I mean that's part of the music. You know, your mind doesn't contract when you take these substances, which are sort of a little bit psychedelic or imaginary and things, and change the state of your actual perceptions and things, you do find all these other amazing things going on. You know, it's incredible
Mhm.
how you're fixed in life because of the capitalistic system, like all waking up at the same time. It gives you the chance to sort of experiment and
Uh,
be. It's magic time, you know, with all your senses really not out of control. You know, it's not out of control. It just gives you what you're imagining anyway. It's only the adrenaline that works. You know, it's like you can also, if you know what's going on, you just have a really good time, a very good time. Some people get the horrors from taking drugs because, you know, me, I really enjoy it because I mean, I don't. drugs other than maybe smoke marijuana occasionally, because I really enjoy to do that, because you can really focus in on and all these other sort of like rules and regulations and shit and stuff like that, which is in all the music, you know, it has to go this way, has to go that way, go out the window. And so you find all these magic places to be, which is in your mind and imagination. It sort of, it becomes what we call progressive, you know, not digressive, going back to the past and
Yeah,
continually regurgitating the same music in the same way. It's like,
yeah, that's
so anyway, I know I sound a bit serious about it, but I am, because I find the music now really very boring, where people haven't got, they don't, and it means that the audiences don't have an attention span. It used to be they'd have a, when you bought albums, you know, this album, you go there and you put it on the thing and you listen to it 20 minutes and you go into the story of it. And you keep it, and you can see it and read it, and then CDs came in. And yes, people would listen through for an hour then in those generations, but now, you know, the younger generation don't have any, um, you know, they don't have any attention.
yeah.
After about sort of like 15 seconds, they're bored with it, you know. It's like, God, you know, it's like, I don't
And I
know.
would like to, yeah, yeah, no, perfect. That's it, you know. It's just a sort of evolution going on. There's a plenty of bands who entitle themselves as
Yeah.
a progressive rock bands, but they are repeating the sounds, repeating the formulas ad eternum. You know, I just did not get it. You know, why these bands still keep calling themselves as a progressive band, you know? It's just weird.
Well, because they're different from the bands that are actually playing that have no melodic content. It's only
Yeah.
rhythm. And the lyrics are quite vulgar occasionally, you know. And when this rap stuff came in, and God knows what, it depends, you know. I mean, there's more people on the planet now, and so when the younger generation are born, whereas there'd only be a few hundred before, then there was a few thousand, and then there was a few 100,000, and now there's millions, and none of them, you know, if it's not on the radio or TV, or if it's not on the TV or on their phone, where are they going to hear it? They're certainly not going to buy it because they have no reception for it. Okay, they don't even know, they have no perception of what has gone before. It's like, you know, when you go to an art college and things like that, you study things from the past. It's the same with
Mhm.
all the arts now, but particularly from the politics of the world and all the rest of it. You know, there's less. There's some amazing art going on, some incredible music, but it's not in the media system because there's not a market for it. Okay.
Mhm.
When the baby boomers came in, that was an interesting thing because it was a lot of middle class people where their fathers didn't actually go to war. So that's why they were born and alive. And a lot of the working class that did come back were the ones that were survivors, self survivors. And so you had you had an amalgamation of middle class and working class and God knows what else that did that. Okay?
Mhm.
You know, everybody's tucked away. You can't blame them, can you? Well, why would I want to know what's going on with the politics and how many people are dying and all
Yeah.
this? They're safe at home, and they have to be safe at home because they've got no time to do anything else because they're going to work in the morning and coming home late at night. Both partners, you know. You think,
Mhm.
love us, you know. I love watching the sun come up. I like going through woods and listening to nature and not having to listen to all this traffic, the smell and the stink of it all, you know. That's why I moved here. And I like collecting my water from the sky. Because
Soon afterwards, Hatfield and the North period, you joined Camel. And how did the invitation had came about? It came from Andy Latimer, from Peter Bowden's. How did you get up ending with playing with the band?
Andy Ward is the name here.
Oh yeah.
And he was the one that he was the one that was the most following musicians. And Peter Barnes and Andy Latimer worked force then, and I think it was Andy Latimer decided that he wanted to move into another direction where the music was becoming a bit more focused on his ideas, and the bass part. Bass parts he was playing for them was like bomb da bobbity bobbity bomb da bobbity bobbity, which is quite hard to do unless you're into that sort of. From Hatfield and The North, all those, Pip and Phil were just laughing when they came to the Camel concert because, I mean, for them that sort of music didn't really exist, I loved it, because it was so entertaining for the audience. I was always there for an audience, and so how it came about was they needed a singer, and they needed a bass player, and they asked me to go down to their rehearsal studio, which is right down south in Devon, in a beautiful place right out the way. Doug had already got removed from the band, and it's a real shame, I think, because he's a much better bass player for that type of Camel music at that time than me. I thought it was a really nice. When I first heard it, I thought, well, what a nice band, like Snow Goose, Moon Madness, all that. I hadn't heard it before then, because I only ever listened to the musicians I was playing with. I got quite often asked about, what, you don't know any Genesis music? Yes, well, I used to travel up the motorway and race them, but I never really got to. Well, I got to hear their music at concerts we did together, like Yes or Genesis and things like that, before anybody became famous. But I wasn't interested in their music because I was listening only to Caravan then, and trying to make that work, And so with Camel, that they knew about me playing in Caravan, okay, and also Hatfield and The North, and I'd never played with Peter Barnes or Andy Latimer or Andy Ward before then, or even spoken to them or knew them, okay. Andy Ward knew more about worldly musics and things, different musics from Camel, when I was actually in it. It was amazing. It had all these other, people they listened to and things, and could sort of like, play it and do it, say, what do you think of this melody? And so I went up there. I went down to Devon with my girlfriend then. That was very beautiful. Made all their tongues hang out. I went in there with a girl called Eve from Canterbury, when my first partnership had broken up, And I got the job because I really enjoyed their music. I sang it and played it well, more or less straight away, because it's quite easy music to play. And I was asked to do the album. They wanted someone to do the album, not to join the band, but to play Rain Dances, which, as you know, it's a very nice album. It's like, I like the classical bit, how it starts. Boom, 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 and then Rain Dances. Great. Pete was really good at all this stuff. He was a great keyboard entertainer. He was there for the audience. So was Lats as well. They both wrote really good songs. The thing on that was it, the one, boom.
You alongside Mel Collins were a blast on that lineup.
Wasn't it nice? Mel had already done that stuff on the road with them, and all that stuff. And he was always invited as a studio musician, for the album. So then he went out on the road as a studio musician, so he was employed to do that. He was in the band, but wasn't, he wasn't paid on the return. I was eventually asked to be in the band, when we went on the road. But first of all, I was asked, to do the whole album as a session musician and to see if it worked. And they loved it and liked it, and so did I. We did endless rehearsals, and when we went out on the road after all that, we did a run-up of about a dozen concerts in England, smaller ones, but and then you went on the road. And I think the first major concert we did was in Finland at a big festival where there was only an hour of darkness, So I wonder why there were lights on stage. and then you realise because it suddenly went dark when the Camel went on. So yeah, I mean, it was like what become a rock star, you know. They were already in that status. Pete was anyway, you know. He played with Van Morrison and that hit single which is called Gloria, you know, Gloria, Gloria.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and that was with Van Morrison, okay. And Pete, his friends were like Fleetwood Mac, Eric Burden, okay. They all came to his wedding, you know. So Pete was the only real sort of like pop rock star I ever was with, you know. It's like amazing, and the band were heading that anyway because I mean that's what Latimer is now, isn't he? He's a guitar hero, isn't he? All the
Yeah.
boys love him because he plays, you know, Les Paul, and he's a real. But he went, and I got asked to join it because it was going. It wasn't jazz, but it got more of a flavour of the elaborateness of jazz, but very sorted. On that, I did the riff, you know, bum ba ba bum 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 ba bum bum ba ba bum bum, which I think is on the second album. Is that something? And it's called "One of These Days I'll Get an Early Night."
Oh
And
yeah, I love that one.
over that
That
riff,
that whole second side was something from other world, you know. Skylines, uneven song.
Uneven Song. Is that the one that goes boom, 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 boom? I can't remember. Lovely songs to sing. I was blessed to be able to do that.
Mhm.
And of course, I had a voice that was a bit less rocky. I said to Lats and Pete, no, you should sing. Don't give up on singing. There'll be a time when we can all sing together. And, you know, but there was, it didn't quite work. I mean, it did. I mean, for Lats, it worked up to a point, but it wasn't really what he wanted. And in fact, I wasn't asked to continue being in the band after the United States. Well, after the California bit. He wanted someone that wanted to play the bass exactly how he wanted it to be played. He didn't want any inventivity in the band, only good solos. And so my song, um, Summer Lightning, you know,
Yeah.
just,
This one is from the Briefless album. Love
yeah,
to.
yeah. And also a very strange number which was called Bomb, Bomb, but you know, that was it called Down on the Farm. Every Sunday morning, before that. It's impossible to sing as a live performance because there's no way where you can take a breath. I mean, I can do it, but it has to be done a bit quietly. But it's, you know, the lyrics are funny, and so I first did it with Caravan, with an album that didn't come out when Caravan wanted to, Pi wanted to make and get Caravan going again with me in it, and
Mhm.
with Jan Shellhouse, okay. And we went down to, you know, Ryan things, and I wrote that tune. It's called it's called Uncle's Farm, which is on a CDR that I wanted to make. It will be on. It's on the Bandcamp. Yeah. This and so Andy Latt took it on completely down on the farm, you know, because he made it a rock verse, you know, bum 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 ba-dee-dee-doo, with the Pete going diddle 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 diddle, and he goes boop every Sunday morning before daybreak down upon the farm. I mean, it's just like a Camel song. I mean, I think it was really because of, you know, Pete wanted other directions and Latimer too, but he had to make it like happen. You know, it's like it's a rock and roll jam,
Yeah.
which is great. And so we put all these things like,
Mhm.
you know, cow noises, you know, behind the cow shed, the farmer is taking, the ploughman is taking a leak. Taking a piss. That's so funny. The lyrics are hilarious, and doing the soundtrack, of course, they loved it. It's a bit like being in Hatfield and The North, where you put all these things onto the album that are a bit strange and wonderful and weary, you know. A lot of the Camel fans, you know, prefer the original sound and what came afterwards, you know. But a lot of them didn't, especially the ones that like the Canterbury sound and things like that. So a lot of people, you know, Camel get drawn into art. Now we've got all these things on the Canterbury scene and things like that. Is Camel Canterbury? Of course it is, because I'm in it. I'm making it sound
What
like Canterbury music. So,
your stint within the band was so short? I always found quite
well, it
frustrating.
wasn't. No, I did 3 years. and there's a live concert out. Camel live, and,
Live record.
and concerts, and there's TV show, and I did enough. I mean, for me, the same thing with Caravan. It only lasted a short while, but I was always back in Caravan again, and always
Hmm.
taking part, supporting, and the same with Hatfield and The North and National Health. I also played in, and with Camel. No, once you're out the band, you're out. And in fact, Dave Sinclair wasn't kept in it. I wasn't kept in it. When we went to Japan, the road crew all got together. They didn't go, and they were no longer in it. And the road crew were amazing when we were on the road with in England, and around Europe. They could sing as well as I could, and so they were like a backing band, all the road crew in the background and stuff like that. It's quite funny, and there are lots of jokes played in that. We played in ball rings and God knows what else with Camel. It was really good fun. I mean, it was like being a rock star. It was brilliant. When we went to Japan, his Pete wasn't in it. That's such a shame that that sort of Latimer fell out with Pete, and it's like God, they weren't in the studio at the same time in Breathless. Okay, did you know that? It's such a shame. We're such good writing partners, and Latimer wanted to go a different way, and so Pete went, okay, good on you, bye bye.
One of my favorite albums by you is from another project, which is quite an underrated project, which was a project that you played with Phil Miller, with the late amazing Alan Gowen from National Health, and Trevor Tompkins on that album Before a World is Sad. I love that record.
Yes, well, I knew Phil's music then because I'd been playing in cahoots, but never on record with them. And I've got a lot of those tapes too. I mean, I did a lot of work, 2 years with Phil.
I was
And
doing that album with these guys. It was amazing record.
I was
That
in.
album
I mean, Alan was very
so
important. It was
marvelous.
It was Alan and Phil putting an album together because they got on so well.
Oh yeah.
I knew Alan from the Hatfield days when I used to go round when he was forming his band, and Phil said, "Why don't you go around and have a play with Alan?" Because that was lovely. He's one of the sweetest guys I'd ever met on planet Earth. Always cups of tea, always no arguments about music, all just play. I met his band, Inca, Gilgamesh. Phil Lee was an amazing guitarist. Travis was an amazing drummer. I think the bass player when I wasn't there was Jeff Klein. He's a great bass player in London. But that came together in Alan's house, and he had cancer then, okay, and they were putting this album together when in his front room with another a very close friend of I saw Peter Bull, who was a
Mhm.
sound engineer and recording person, and we made it in I think a couple of weeks in Alan's home, and so it was all very sort of like wow, I mean, Alan knew he was going to die. He was going into hospital on a Thursday after playing all day, and then he had a lumbar puncture, okay, into his spine, which must have been incredibly painful. And then he came back in the morning full of he was going to play music, no problem, and so we carried on. And for me, it's I mean, I knew Phil's music and not so much of Alan's, and so sometimes I'm not playing bass on it,
Mhm.
taking part with it in bits and pieces and things like that because it's all written out. With Phil's music, I knew all that stuff, bum, ba, do. It's a bass part that he actually sorted out for me when I was in cahoots. before it was actually made. So I've got all those tapes and things. Yeah, it's beautiful. On my Bandcamp, it's got the rehearsals for it too. That's called Before a Note is Played from Robert. Have you seen my Bandcamp? Please join it.
Yeah. And now we're entering into the final part of this interview. And I would like to ask about some other things and some general things about you. And firstly, this whole interview was about your career at first place, you know. And
No, thank you for that. It's nice.
and I would like to hear and I would like to hear, what do you listen to today? Older, newer music, rock, jazz? What do you most like to hear
It's still the same
today?
way. People that ask me to play music, especially locally here, my sound. I mean, I got loads of stuff, lots of jazz. I listen to. I listen to nearly all types of music, but I only give it. At the moment I can hear what it's going to be like, I tend to move on. You know, I get sent. I suppose in my career things, I've been sent well over 1,000 bits of CDs and things, and people say, please let me know what you think about this music. So I always get back to them. I always listen to it, and say, yeah. I enjoy to listen to it first time. Sometimes I speed through it because I know it. I know what it's going to be within the thing that I'm interested. No, I listen to a lot of young people's music, and I play on it too for them because they ask me to do it. And I listen to particularly to more jazz, and so I'm now. I'll tell you what I listen to. I mean, I listen to all types of music, and I listen to good players. I mean, obviously, I listen to people like Chuck Beck and stuff like that, and all the other popular music and popular singers and things like that. But I tend to listen to a bit more jazz orientated stuff. I mean, still listen to John McLaughlin and his Shakti, and I've got the records and things. And then the latest music's interesting, and all those musicians that play with him. I particularly like John Scofield's music and Pat Metheny and a lot of other. There's thousands of bass players I listen to that are double bass players. Great music's happening on planet Earth at the moment. Really good stuff. I listen to Stanley Clarke.
Oh yes,
I get this
lovely
all,
bass player.
and his young band now in his young band in Montreux Jazz Festival,
Hmm?
something like that,
Yeah.
music festival, and he invited Hiromi. Is her name Hiromi? The Japanese girl Hiromi. She's a wonderful keyboard player. Have you heard her? She looks so beautiful and she plays so beautiful. And she's art playing, Stanley Clarke's band on all these young musicians, and they were super. I could send that. I will find it for you if you like, because I was watching it the other night. Also, I was watching Chick Corea play with John McLaughlin and Victor Wooten on bass, and I forget the drummer's name. It's a good band in a small New York club. Film of it, and they're playing Chick Corea's music. It's when he was alive. Chick Corea left the planet, didn't he? Sadly, but there you go. And there he goes. And Return to Forever. Do you know that music? That's
Oh
nice.
yes. Return to
Yeah.
Forever is a wonderful.
Only the best, Carl.
Yeah, yeah,
All
yeah,
the best music you listen to, good, isn't it?
yeah.
It's
Do you
lovely
have
to
a
know you,
favorite
brother.
artist?
Me. Otherwise,
Great,
why would I do it? Well,
great.
yeah, sorry about that. I'm not
That's
being
great.
ignorant, but I do. Everybody says, well, who's your favourite bass player? I've got thousands. I haven't got one. But the one I'm like, and I always say, they say, who's your favourite bass player? I say, me. Otherwise, why would I do it? I'm always trying to perfect myself and enjoy and write stuff, and things like that. And
Hmm.
the sound I
Yeah.
make, I try to perfect. It's particularly mine, People want to know what strings I have, rotor sound strings I use, and especially the early type, jazz
Hmm.
strings, wire wound, like Stanley Clarke, like Jason Howe. I was in touch with Jason Howe because I knew his family and his dad and his brother, and always went even Caravan. I mean, what strings do I use for bass? Rotor sound, and I tried to get the early ones now because they were nickel steel, not stainless steel, and they really had amazing harmonic in them.
Hmm.
Great sound.
You had cited one a bass player, a marvelous bass player, which was Stanley Clarke. And I would like to ask now, as a musician, as a bass player, which line did you enjoy most playing and composing
What
of your
stand up
whole discography, of your whole songs?
on
Which
mine?
one?
What you mean
Yeah,
mine? What, as a
yeah.
bass player or as a singer or what, or both? Or oh
As
no,
a
yeah, yeah.
bass player perspective.
When I was in cahoots, because Phil wrote melodies and things like that, I used to be in the room with him sometimes 24 hours a day, and he was able to compose, and he put them to me and let me find my own. He was constantly saying, "Well, this is the melody and how's it goes," you know. And yeah, he was my favourite songwriter and thing, and I did my best bass playing with him too, and Pip as well. All my best playing is with those
Mhm.
guys.
And
I mean, check out. I mean, if you haven't heard it, anybody that's interested in me and things like that should definitely listen to Before a Word Is Said with Alan Gowan and all that, because the bass sound is pretty good there, and the parts I was given, well, I knew to sing a lot of it to do with, it was most interesting to play with those guys. You know, Trevor Tompkins. I mean, they all three of them have left the planet, which is so. You know, Trevor Tompkins, you know, died. He was the last one to go, but he was a wonderful drummer, and the spirit of that. The funny story is when Alan was looking for a drummer, because it was really, you know, the deal was about him really. This Before a Word Is Said, it's an Alan Gowan album really, and a Phil Miller obviously, because they were partners in music and writing and things like that, and they wanted to make an album together. And so I've lost the plot when I was going to say then. Oh, the first drummer that came to try, they wanted to try out, was Gary Husband. You know, he
mm,
played with Alan Holdsworth, and now he played with
mhm.
uh, Johnny McLaughlin, and now he's doing his own thing. And yeah, amazing drummer, amazing keyboard player. But he came round, and Alan Gowan and Phil Miller gave him the music, and he played through it. And he played really well, but you know, it's not quite into the spirit of it. But he played really well. He had no problem to play all that and read it and get on with it. But he'd been offered the chance to go and play with Alan Holdsworth, and he says, "Look, you know, sorry, I not have time to do this. I'm gonna now go off and play with Alan Holdsworth." And, oh, okay, goodbye. And then of course Alan asked, "What, you know, what's the? I mean, it was best that it was be Trevor Tompkins, you know."
You play with so many bands from the Canterbury scene and from the music scene
Well,
overall.
they're
Is
all
there
friends.
anyone?
Sorry,
What?
they're all friends and they're all family. You know, the country
Yeah.
is a huge.
Hmm.
It's a huge family of
Hmm.
friends. You know, and sometimes you know it's
Is there
like,
anyone? Is there anyone of? Is there any one band that you would have liked to re to be a member in a certain way,
well, I
or
reformed.
even just for a while
I re.
or
Oh
something?
yeah, all of them. I reformed with my cousin. We reformed Caravan, which was really good fun. You know, it wasn't quite the same magic as before because we'd all gone off into our different areas, and so nearly got the music sorted for the TV show. And then with Hatfield and The North, you know, I was always trying to play. You know, I was always invited to play with Pip and Phil. There's many other things before In Cahoots started where we'd be playing together, and you know, all those things. And so when you say, is there one? No, all of them. I enjoyed everything I did. You know, you move on from it when you're not enjoying, and then you usually come back together again. It's a bit like my song on Rotters Club. You know, it didn't matter anyway. We'll meet again some other day. You know, until then, goodbye. You'll be in my dreams. See you later. Goodbye. Bye for now. The time has come to leave you. Please don't feel alone. You know. There be a way to greet you and say goodbye, 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 now, etc. So it's like a bit like that, I mean, if you're not happy for a period of time when you're in conflict with each other about the music, it's better to move on, rather than keep going over the same problems. It's like, and especially if it's not making you any money, you know what I mean? So I'm really now happy not to be in a boys' club other than the ones I create, and I create a different band nearly every week, and I travel solo. So when I go to Japan, there's three bands I can play with. One plays Camel music, one likes to play mine and Hatfield stuff and things like that, and other musicians and things that I help that got bands that were followers of my music. And so the same thing happens in the United States since I went there. So I go there as a solo. One, I have a much better time because I usually get to stay with the promoters or the officials. When Caravan played in Perugia, which was our first go into Italy, because Caravan and me too. I think maybe I don't, and that was our first time to go to Italy. I was just spellbound by the place
Mhm.
and the respectful activity between people and how they regarded concerts and being together. And Italy's a wonderful place. I mean, Italy is the number one holiday place to go if you want good food and good weather and good seaside and good mountains and things like that. It's all in one go. Whole length of Italy is that. The first Hatfield concert we did was in my hometown here, Fasano, in 2005. I'd already been here since 92, coming down to visit people and saw these Trulies that I live in and all that sort of stuff. Met many musicians in 92 in Perugia that came from Taranto. And then when I was invited to come down to come and just, I did a concert at Caravan of Dreams in Genoa where we made an album, and I got my cousin to be driven down here. I was doing a trio, Caravan of Dreams, then with Rick Bedolf, who was one of the road crew at Hatfield and The North, played bass very much like me, and Andy Ward, the drummer. I mean, I played many things with Andy. First of all, I rescued him from the Black Forest when he was playing in a band called Skabush. Stayed down there, and I ended up going
Yeah.
down there every year for 4 years uh, to go and work at this tent festival called the Zelt Festival in Freiburg, where you know I, I got to know the president of it, and we made a band with him while I was there. I was a workforce there. I met people like Dizzy Gillespie and you
Mhm.
know all the people I met. They're amazing. They had this. So I've always been doing music off the media system and the popular thing, and I've met so many great
Yeah.
musicians. I remember playing with Cozy Powell at this
Oh
festival.
yeah.
Remember him? And so I did play with
Amazing.
him, organised a band so he could join it at the festival, and things like that. So not many people hear about that. They all think I wasn't in the media thing during the 90s. Yes, I was. Canterbury festivals then and things like that. But it's not in the media thing. People don't know about all the good music that's about because they only listen to the media stuff and the same records over and over again. They just when they hear when they hear that music differently, they don't really discover the really good music that's happening. There's lots
Yeah.
of it on planet Earth, especially with the people I came because my drummer friend here is why I live here, and Angelo Lassasso is a great drummer and knows all my music, total fan of mine. I said that's no good, you know. We've been friends ever since I've been down. This is my
Mhm.
number one friend, and then the guy that's coming tomorrow to do my good dear friend Francesco Festolanti has his own band here. He's now making his third album. He's doing it all himself, and he came up to record. I play on one of his albums and things like that. And they're just such good people. So I'm making bands all the time. I'm blessed that they want to do it because they always make the music sound so good. It's always good fun.
And
It's always on the edge.
my last question, my last question from this interview. If you could choose one album that defines you as a artist, as an artist, uh, and one album. Uh, I mean, one album that defines you as an artist, and one phrase that defines your career. What would it be? Each one of them.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, that there's not one. If you're asking me to talk about ones
Okay.
I've done, it's all of them. But it's like it's the next one. Okay, it's
Oh
the one
yeah.
that it's the new one that's going to be made from. It's being made at the moment. You know, it's one, and it's always music. As I say, you only make one bit of music in your life. It's just split into lots of other bits and pieces, and it goes all over the place. But really, it's only one for me. It's one long bit of music, which is mainly a song or it's an instrumental. That's it, you know. And it's always what is it? You just said, well, which is your one that defines and they all do. It's difficult to say one because I enjoyed making them all. You know, you're always moving forward. I mean, I suppose that's what progressive, the terminology of being progressive is, but, it's like future positive, I think. And, you know, love, peace, and harmony, that's the deal of it. Especially now, the peace bit of it, especially when you get to 77, which I am, it's like, I've still, I mean, my mind and things like that, I think still thinks like over when I was in Hatfield and the North when I was 27, okay, and learnt all this stuff from the way Phil and Pip behaved when they were organising their music and things. I mean, they were fantastic insight to what really interesting music and the way to play it is. You know, it came from Pip and Phil, really, all that stuff. I mean, I really enjoyed Pied music. I still do. But only when I'm in it and playing with him, right? And it's like all the way through my life, I dedicated myself to the people I was playing with. And so, I was asked to do a Genesis tribute. I never listened to Genesis in my life. I mean, I'd heard bits and pieces and things, and I had to pick one song, and do it for this. Uh, I think it's called Supper's Ready or something. It was from
Mhm.
a guy, and I listened all the way through it and all this. I thought, well, there's a nice song. Wow. And it wasn't even Peter Gabriel singing. I think it's Phil Collins. It's called, it goes, ba da da dee da 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 da. A Widow Path. I don't know what it's called now. What's it called? Ba-da-da-da. Wonder if they're late for church and it's cold. Da-da-dee. I thought, well, that's a really nice tune. And I don't want to do it on guitar and things. I just want to sing it. So I've got my friend who comes from Canterbury, great keyboard player called David Williams. He's a really
Oh
fantastic
yeah.
keyboard player. He's a master. He's fantastic as a comp. He's a reader and he can write. Whenever I made a band with him with another Canterbury musician, number one in the world, clarinet. Okay, Tony Coe. Not many people know about him because he would never fly. And he was asked in early days. Tony Coe is the name. You should check him out. He's the most amazing, inventive, melodic player. I think it's just incredible. He's left the planet. He was a bit older than me, and I played with him. I made a band up with him and Dave Rhys Williams, Pip Pyle on drums, Didier Melherb, Patrice Mayer. I don't know if you know about him. He's a guitarist from Paris. And we played in a Paris club called New Morning. You'll find all this stuff on my Bandcamp site. So if anybody's listening to this, they're interested, particularly if they want to be in contact with me and and talk about like I talk to you about how the music was played or how we're doing, they want you to understand and give insights to their own inventivity and all the rest of the stuff and things like that.
Thank you very much, Richard.
Thank
Thanks,
you
dear
too,
friend.
Colin. Thanks to
Thanks
you too.
for everything, for the chats, for the companion, for the everything that you had had presented to me and had done for all of us here in this amazing interview. I'm so
That's very
blessed.
kind of you.
I'm
Thanks to
so
you. It's
honored.
all, hey, Kelvin, it's all your fault, okay? On you. And I
Now,
thank you for that.
as soon
Blessed
as
to know you.
possible,
You know that, don't you? I mean, we were
we're trying our
instantly
best to
friends.
bring you to here to Brazil. Honored. It would be amazing you here
I think it's
playing your
possible because
friends
I
here
was
in
on.
Brazil because
I mean, there
I'm
are other
sure
people
that
I can
people
introduce
would
you
love it.
to that you
I'm
can work
sure
with.
that people would love it.
I think they already know the music and things like that. Quite a few. I'm
For
amazed at the
sure.
amount of people. I mean, there's quite a few. It's like when I speak to people I speak to guitarists and things like that in Brazil. They call me and things like that, and they call me because they know the music and they know my bass playing, they know my singing things. So I'm blessed with that from the people I play with because it is Hatfield and The North, it is Caravan, it is Camel, it is my own bands and things like that, which I make. When I come to Brazil, I play with these people that are in contact because they're
Yeah.
good musicians. They can play this music, okay? And you
Yeah.
usually find you've got amazing musicians in
Mhm.
Brazil. I mean, for me, they're the best because of the rhythm. Also, because of the rhythms of the language that you speak. It's just like, wow. It's very romantic, this indigenous language. It's like the magic is still always in the planet, that. And that's
Yeah.
in Brazil, it's just amazing. The festival spirit,
Yeah.
in everything you do and all that,
You're gonna love it. It's
It's a
amazing.
joy, isn't it? It's a
Um,
joy to be part of that. I'd love to be in
mhm.
Brazil. I would really love it.
And it's a joy being having the chance to talk with you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
again for this.
Any,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you very
Kelvin.
much.
Yeah, bless you. Thank you for the
Bye
chance.
bye, dear friend.
Happy
Bless
days
you.
always.